to earlier. I call the Honourable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I rise to conclude debate on the Fair Work Registered Organisations Amendment Bill, the second vital tranche of workplace reform reintroduced into this House for the fourth time this week. As I said in my speech introducing this bill on the third time it had been brought into the House, since 2013 the Coalition has sought repeatedly to honour the commitment it made to the Australian people to legislate to improve the governance and accountability of registered organisations, unions and employer organisations. The legislation was blocked by the previous Senate repeatedly and consequently was one of the two reasons for July's double dissolution election. We fought the election on these commitments to workplace reform and we won. The mandate to proceed with this bill is clear and the case for reform is compelling. Better run workplaces, safer workplaces, workplaces not subject to corrupt or unlawful behaviour will deliver stronger economic growth, more jobs and higher wages. This was never about union busting. It is about economy boosting. It is about economy boosting. Following our re-election, we are therefore again, for the fourth time, seeking to honour our commitment to the Australian people by reintroducing this bill. Now, Mr Speaker, the government acknowledges the important role registered organisations play in workplaces in Australia. These organisations, unions and employer organisations, stand in positions of trust. To remain strong, it's vital that they are seen to do the right thing by their members. Yet, the truth is that officials at some of these organisations have been in flagrant abuse of their responsibilities they owe to their members. They have misused union funds for personal gain. They have rorted membership rolls to increase their clout within the Labor Party. They have ripped off hard-working members to indulge their own political or personal interests. Is it any wonder, Mr Speaker, union representation in the workforce, particularly the private sector workforce, is at an all-time low? Is it any wonder there should be a crisis of confidence in this culture on display by too many senior officials in the union movement? The Coalition has repeatedly sought to honour the commitment it made to the Australian people to improve the governance and accountability of registered organisations. This is a policy we have now taken to 2 elections. The case for change has been made. The gross breaches of trust and financial impropriety displayed, for example, by officials of the Health Services Union, provided the initial impetus for reform. One senior official is serving a jail sentence, another is currently facing dozens of charges, and yet another has been penalised nearly $500,000 for his indiscretions. Since then, the findings of the Royal Commission into trade union governance and corruption has revealed myriad examples of bad behaviour by union officials. The current system of regulation is doing very little to deter them. As many judges have noted, they treat the small fines imposed under the current law like parking tickets, like a cost of doing business. The Royal Commission revealed how officials from the National Union of Workers used union credit and corporate cards to pay for dating services, holidays, corporate box seats at major events, toys, hairdressing and other personal services. Officials from the Transport Workers Union used members' funds to purchase 2 luxury foreign cars and changed redundancy rules to ensure they could keep the cars for their personal use even after they left the union. The TWU also appointed its own official to a concurrent position at its superannuation body. He was paid $93,400 for 2.5 days' work over the course of a year. The Leader of the Opposition, when he was Secretary of the AWU, accepted a company donation for over $40,000 to pay for a political operative to manage his campaign to win a seat in federal parliament, and he failed to disclose it until 2 days before he was due to give evidence at the Royal Commission. The Leader of the Opposition's successor at the AWU, Caesar Melham, repeatedly issued false invoices from the AWU to companies worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. At the same time, the union received lists of the names of the employers of those companies to be added to the union's membership roll. Many of them had no knowledge they had become union members. Others had their union dues paid by the company when they'd already paid them themselves. Those opposite would have us believe that the Hayden Royal Commission uncovered just a few bad apples. It's true that many union officials are law-abiding and well-motivated, but there are systemic issues here, undeniably. In the words of Commissioner Hayden, it would be utterly naive to think that what has been uncovered is anything other than the small tip of an enormous iceberg. This bill will strengthen existing financial accounting and disclosure requirements placed on registered organisations. It will increase penalties for those found to have done the wrong thing, and it will establish a strong, independent watchdog, the Registered Organisations Commission, to give the regulation of these organisations the focus and the resources it needs. At the same time, it will reduce the unnecessary red tape imposed by the existing Act that was the work of the Leader of the Opposition when he last amended these laws. It's clear, Mr Speaker, that the corrupt and illegal conduct of many union officials will continue unless there is effective parliamentary intervention. Now, when politicians are presented with a clear problem for which there is a proven solution, they have a responsibility to act. This is the fourth time members of this parliament have been given the opportunity to consider this legislation to clean up registered organisations. Those opposite have been shameless in their efforts on behalf of their union supporters to frustrate and obstruct this important reform. I've always found it very hard to understand why the Labor Party resists with such fervour this legislation. Given the extent of the scandals exposed in the Royal Commission and elsewhere, you would have thought leaders of the union movement and their political wing in this parliament would have said, now is the time to clean up our Act, to reassure our members and potential members that unions are run in their interest. But no, Mr Speaker, when it comes to a choice between protecting the interests of rank-and-file members or defending the freedom of corrupt union officials to rip off those they claim to serve, the Labor Party has locked in slavishly behind the union bosses. Now, almost a year ago, I asked this question of Labor. Whose side are you on? Are you on the side of the members or are you on the side of the officials? And sadly, we have the same answer today as we had back then. Those opposite remain stubborn apologists for the appalling exploitation of hard-working Australians by union officials abusing their power. How long do we have to watch officials of unions representing some of the lowest-paid workers in Australia ripping them off, not being accountable, not prepared to accept the same standards of accountability and transparency as the directors of a public corporation? Mr Speaker, the time for action to stop these scandals, to end the rip-offs, is long overdue, and I commend the bill to the House.